looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. You should know, and loving life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, the loving light will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and of course to the Loving Life family, and to everybody, please have a great happy Easter. I know it's hard under the current conditions, but let's try. Okay, now the final stages of the platform upgrade will take place on Saturday afternoon through to Sunday afternoon. This is the Loving Life television or TV.com platform. This is a period of about 24 hours during which time Loving Life TV will be down. So that'll happen sometime sort of like early Saturday afternoon through to sometime Sunday afternoon. So it's about a 24-hour period. But this is the upside. When it returns Sunday night, Rudy assures me you will see the dramatic improvement in delivery, even with large volumes of viewers where we've had problems with the live streams in the past. During this time, please check out and register on the Loving Life TV forums, which you'll see at the top of the page, because those forums are really taking off, guys. If you haven't visited the forums, please do. There's a lot of great information there, and it's updated daily, and thank you so much for Nat, who's here, because she looks after the forums for us. Okay, I'll get Michael Southwood on. He is from the Unity group. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. That's subscribe to Loving Life on YouTube, and of course Loving Life, register on Loving Life TV, and please put your questions in the side chat. Okay, before we get on to the Unity group, here comes Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. Good to see you again.
Good stuff. Yes, you too.
I think your camera needs a bit of a wipe. It's a bit fuzzy. Have you got a cloth or a tissue you can just wipe your camera with? Let's see if that helps. It happens to my camera too.
How's that?
Yeah, that's actually a lot better. Much better. Yeah, there must have been some dust.
A lot of light behind me.
Yeah, no, the light is fine.
How's the light behind me? Is that affecting? Is it fine?
No, the light behind you is good. It's all good.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Michael. Before we get on to the Unity group, what do you think of the debacle unfolding before our eyes when it comes to the ANC leadership right now?
Are we live, Scott?
Yes, we are. Absolutely, we're live.
Okay. All right, great. I'm adjusting my life here. I didn't realize we're live.
We go live at 8.
Um,
Yeah, carry on.
okay, brilliant, brilliant. Scott, look, thanks for asking that question. Look, this kind of thing is going to happen in a situation that is unstable as what South Africa is right now. You're going to have people who are going to be vying for the leadership, trying to take it over, attempting to undermine the leadership of the country, the current leadership. So that kind of thing is going to happen, in any country where there's this type of instability and, the rule of law is really not being followed. So, yeah, look, I mean, it's going to be an interesting few weeks and months ahead to see how it all pans out. But my gut feel really is that there's probably not going to be very much that's going to happen. I think things are going to just continue pretty much the way they are in the current downward spiral that they're in.
Yeah, well, I was actually referring more to, you've now got two factions, clear factions of the ANC. You've got the Ramaphosa faction and you've got the Ace Magashula, Jacob Zuma faction, which is like the corruption faction. Now, if the corruption factions somehow get the upper hand, the rule of law is going to go out the window, isn't it?
Well, look, I think we need to be careful which compartment we put Jacob Zuma in. I don't think that anything has been confirmed that Ace Magashula and Jacob Zuma are working together. I don't believe that that's true at all, not even for a second. I think Ace Magashula is doing this with his guys, but I don't believe that he has necessarily the support of JZ. I don't believe he does at all. So, but I was referring to that same thing when I was answering your question.
Yeah.
The two factions that are there. I don't really believe anything is going to come of it, to be fair. They may well go and vie for ANC leadership, that kind of thing. But in terms of vying for the country leadership, I can't see much changing in the next few months anyway.
Yeah. Now, why I'm talking about corruption is because your organization is basically wanting to provide a solution so that corruption cannot just grow like it has in South Africa. I heard that over the last 3 years, something like 1.5 trillion rand has been misappropriated by this ANC government, which is more than 1 year's budget. Have you heard those figures?
I haven't specifically heard those figures, but a lot of money has been going missing all the time. I mean, it's not just recently; it's since '94 money has been going missing. But by the same token, money went missing even before '94. So politicians are prone to being dishonest. Sorry to say, and this is why we as the Unity Group are interested in an economic governance system as opposed to a political governance system. Because politicians, there doesn't seem to be any accountability as far as politicians are concerned. When these people are in control, they just do whatever they like, and it's okay because they're the leaders. Now, in an economic governance system, there'll be checks and balances all the way, with the people making the decisions and not, a few self-appointed leaders. So it's a completely different system altogether. And so, yes, corruption is rife at the moment, and corruption is rife in every single country that has a political system, and that is every single country. So, Britain and the United States and Germany and all of these other countries are not exempt from corruption. Their corruption is just more hidden. Ours is just a lot more blatant, and ours is a lot worse. So, yes, trillions have been stolen. Trillions have also been given to this government by foreign countries, by foreign powers, and that money has been misappropriated as well. That money has been given as favors. It's been given to buy certain things, fishing rights, mineral rights, forestry, whatever the case may be. And that money has not, the people haven't seen the money. And the fishing rights and the mineral rights and those rights belong to the people. They don't belong to the government.
Right.
So the government is assuming ownership when a government is in fact the servant of the people. And so when your servants are assuming ownership of your possession, then you have a problem. And that is exactly what politics does and what these politicians have been doing. So they've been assuming that they own the country, and in fact, we own the country. The people are the owners of the country, not the politicians.
Yeah, I don't think they've got the IQ to understand what they're actually doing, quite honestly, or a lot of them anyway. I just talking about corruption. I think in other countries like Australia, it's more legacy corruption. And what I mean by that is that someone retires from being a politician and he automatically, because he's one of the boys, gets a top position in some company or some bureaucracy, and so he basically gets benefits from his past in politics as a legacy, as opposed to the blatant corruption that goes on in South Africa. Now, let's turn on to the Unity Group, and I wanted to really just touch on corruption, because this is what you are trying to combat in your organization. Now, there are so many political parties and organizations, and you touched on that you're an alternative to the normal political party. To be clear, am I correct in saying that the Unity Group is not a political party?
No, absolutely we are not. We are opposed to absolutely everything that is political.
Right.
We absolutely believe that the political system is not the correct way to run a country. We believe that it's a Roman system that was imposed on people from those times already, and it's a system of dividing and controlling. Because the minute you open the stage up to multiple political parties, you immediately divide the people. So here we have people, and currently in South Africa, I think there must be about 40 political parties. So what kind of division does that create? And it's much easier to control a country when you've created division in that country than it is when you've created unity. Now we are talking about a unifying system of governance, which would be an economic system, as opposed to obviously this divisive political system. In an economic system of governance, there wouldn't be any political parties. There wouldn't be any other opposing parties. It would be the people voting for individuals to manage and run the country themselves. So, that dividing system would be completely, it wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be on the stage at all. It wouldn't be an option.
So the element of democracy would still be there.
Yes, absolutely. But it's a completely open, free, fair, and transparent type of democracy, unlike the type of democracy we have now. I mean, just think of the fact that everybody has been forced to wear masks. People are now going to be forced to wear vaccines. To take vaccines, not physically being forced, but like with the masks, if you don't wear a mask, you can't go into a supermarket. If you don't wear a mask, you can't fill up your car with petrol. So it will be the same. Exactly the same thing is coming. Now, is that democracy? I mean, is that freedom? Of course it's not. And we're talking about a completely different system where the people can make the decisions for themselves. They can decide if they want to wear a mask, if they don't have to want to take a vaccine, or whatever the case may be. So nobody will ever be forced to do anything. There would obviously be a rule of law that has to be there, but those would be based on basic principles. So this isn't a system. It's not a communist system by any stretch of the imagination.
The reason I raised that is because Carl Schwab of the World Economic Forum, they're talking about an economic global government, which is similar in concept to what you're suggesting, but there's no democracy. So that's where the thing separates, because with this great reset he's talking about, it'll be a one world government, one currency, and the people who are put in power will be the mates, the billionaires and the people who basically have all the money, and everybody else would just be a serf. That's a huge point of difference, which I just wanted to clarify, because what you're suggesting is clearly still a democracy. Now, what inspired you to establish the Unity Group?
We've spoken about this before in
just tell us again.
Previous meetings. Well, look, to tell you the truth, this is not something that I was looking for. This is not a bright idea that I came up with or anything like that. I mean, this idea literally came to me out of the blue. I was up in the mountains near Riversdale on a I think it was a 4 or a 5 day fast when I was meditating and praying up in the mountains, and woke up one morning with this idea in my mind that the country needed to be run on an economic platform. Now, I wasn't thinking about politics. I've never been interested in it. I've never been interested in running any country. I've never really cared whether a country was run in any way or other at all. I mean, I'm a South African with a British passport. I can live practically anywhere in the world if I want to, and I have. I've lived in 6 different countries. I've traveled in 92 other countries. I've always been a citizen of the world, and I've always felt free. And I wasn't looking for a job, and I certainly wasn't looking for one that would involve the governance of a country. So this came to me completely out of the blue, and this was 7 years ago now. And I remember writing it all down, and a few years later, I think probably about 4 years ago now, we started a Facebook group for it, and then just left it for the Unity group. And when I was back in England in 2019 and early 2020, last year, I just had a very strong, overwhelming feeling that I needed to come back to South Africa towards the middle of March, and that the time of the Unity group has come, and that this was a time when something was going to happen to prepare the way for the Unity group to possibly come into power, or not possibly, to come into power, and to govern the country on that platform. So that, in a nutshell, really is how it all started.
Okay, now how would the Unity group participate in let's say, the 2024 election? I mean, because you're not a political party. How would it actually get votes?
Scott, I'm not in 2024 yet. I can answer that question in 2024. The thing is, we are, as the Unity group, are pretty much following the unfolding events as we're going along. So I'd say we're following our noses in a way. I'm not exactly sure how we would do it in 2024, but I believe that the plans that we have now for bringing economic change already in the country, and creating a sense of how can I say, security or trust amongst the people, which is the direction we're going in. I believe that by 2024, we will have the support of most of the people in the country. And if we needed to register as a political party at that stage to run as a candidate, then I'm certain that that's something that we would have to do, and we would do, if that's what's needed.
Right. Now, the model that's used by the UIM, I don't know if you know Neil de Beer, is that they're calling themselves an organization, and they're running independence. They're not going to be a political party. They're going to be independents within the municipal elections later this year. And I'm just wondering if that model isn't something you shouldn't be looking at a couple of target towns or regions, because if you had let's say the Unity group had control over, let's just take a town, let's just call it Harrismith. Okay, let's just say that the Unity group councillors had control over Harrismith. That could become a model that the rest of South Africa could see how your vision is sorting out Harrismith, and perhaps bring it up to the standard of Orania, which is obviously run beautifully. And having that model, when you came up to 2024, would basically, the rest of South Africa would say, hey, we want a piece of this action. So you'd actually have a work in progress that people could actually see happening. It's just a thought. But now let's get on to the Unity group. What has the Unity group been doing since we last spoke?
Scott, I think we realized a little while ago that there are a lot of people complaining about everything that's going on. Everybody's making a lot of noise, and people are complaining, and there are just a lot of voices and a lot of noise. And all of these, so-called politicians with all these new political parties, all they're doing is really talking. So we've got Herman Mashaba, we've got all of these other guys with their little groups and their little parties, and everyone is just talking. And everybody's pointing fingers at each other and complaining, and nobody's really doing anything about it. And so really we've decided that as a Unity group, we need to start making a difference. It's not enough just to be blaming people and shouting to everybody and saying, oh, you're just messing the country up. And, that's not really going to get us anywhere. what we need to be doing, we need to be providing solutions. And I think that's the area that we're starting to move into, the Unity Group. Because unity needs to be created in the country, not by dividing people any further, which is what all of these voices are doing. They're just continually dividing people, creating more options for people to follow. You know, exactly what you were saying to me now, why don't we go and take a town and do something there? But, what is the purpose, what is the ultimate point of that going to be if we haven't provided solutions that people can live in? All we've done is we've used superior brain power, or we've used an intelligent idea to convince people to follow us. And I don't think that's really the way to do this. I think we need to do things, and by doing things, show ourselves to be worthy of governing this country. And I'm not talking about myself governing this country. I'm not interested in governing this country at all. I have an interest in finding the right people to run this country. And those are people who are skilled, who are gifted, who have the abilities to manage a country of this nature. South Africa is within the top richest countries in the world, and I think people have forgotten that. The thing is that our resources have been so badly mismanaged. Our manufacturing industry has been so depleted by all of the imports from China and other places that this country is no longer seen as one of the wealthiest countries on earth. However, if it is managed correctly with the right people, this country will show itself once more to be the wealthiest country on earth. I mean, as I've said many times before, the rand, the international currencies were measured by the South African rand. In the late 60s, early 70s, the South African rand was the top right across the world, and everybody measured their currencies by the rand. Why can't that happen again? I believe it can, but it cannot be. It will not happen under a political governance system. I'll tell you why. Because under politics, there are far too many fat cats sharing the pot, and there are far too many people wanting their pound of flesh out of the country. Under an economic governance system, the modus operandi is people first, profit second, and so it's always about making profit, but not at the expense of the people, so that the people are always benefiting from it. So to answer your question, Scott, we are about creating solutions. So right now, we're sitting with a few ideas that we're busy working on. The first one we've just launched, which is an accountability structure for businesses. It's an accreditation service that it's an accreditation service that the Unity Group has just launched. South Africa has got a long history, a very, very long, dark history of some really bad characters doing business in the country, taking people for a ride, taking advantage of people, and really a lot of people are afraid to do business in South Africa amongst each other. And we feel that by creating this accreditation service, we can create unity, and we can start driving business to right people who are doing sound business, who are doing honorable business, who are honest and upright in the way they do their businesses. So we start with that, and we're going to start promoting those businesses and really seeing if we can get more business to grow. So I'm very interested in getting manufacturing going again, and especially the textile industry. So we're interested in ultimately seeing if we could get some of those factories in Port Elizabeth up and running again. And there are hundreds of factories that are just standing empty because of all the imports that are coming into the country. And so we need to start changing these things. We're also talking about doing a micro school system that would be for grades 1 to 12. There would be a business school, micro business schools, there'd be micro technical schools, there'd be micro agricultural schools. So it's different things like that to get more knowledge to the youth, to younger adults, to the children, so that we can get our standard of education up. Because while our standard of education is so low, obviously the output is going to be just as low. So we need to have decent input from our higher education level so that we can have a better output. So that is another thing that we're hoping to launch. We're just busy working out the legalities of that at the moment, so it's taking a bit of time to launch. We're about to launch a business app that is coming out this coming week. We're launching a magazine as well. I think that magazine will probably be next week or the following week. All of these things are geared towards creating unity, to bringing people together, to get people to talk, to work together, to interact, to share skills, to share ideas. That is really what we're all about. That's what the Unity Group is about. We're not about whinging. We're not about complaining. We're not about shooting people down. That's not what we need to do. You talk about the two factions in the ANC. That's fine. Let them carry on. We're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on providing solutions to the country, fixing what these guys have messed up. And quite honestly, they've done us a favor, because by them messing this up, they're going to make us look good when we fix it. I think that's what we need to be concentrating on right now.
Right. Okay. Well, I find it interesting you talk about, getting the right people in the right positions. I think one of the biggest challenges South Africa's got right now is basically what you did. A lot of people who are smart left the country, and you just happen to have returned back to South Africa. Most people have said, we're not coming back. So you have to create the environment for smart people to want to come back to the country. And I think that's going to be one of your biggest problems, getting enough of the brain drain people to come back to fill those key positions that you talk about.
Scott, I think we've got enough intelligent people right here who didn't run away. The people are here. And we, of course, we want to provide a safe and secure environment for South Africans that have left to come back as well. But, there are enough people to draw from that are in the country already. So I don't think that we're going to be left short or high and dry in any way. Hoping for some people to come back to the country for them to run it. That's not what we need. We've got the people right here in the country who can do it. And so, people that have left are welcome to come back, and they're welcome to also put their names forward for these positions, or whatever the case may be, once to that. But to be fair, we have got a huge number of people in this country who are well skilled to manage it correctly. And so I believe we won't have a shortfall at all.
Right. Well, that's good to hear, because that's something that really worries me. I know that when it comes to the health professions, there's a huge shortage and growing shortage of doctors in South Africa. I'm talking about qualified doctors, because I think a lot of the doctors today, I wouldn't go into a public hospital, but that's another story. Okay, now, how does Unity Group address the dangers that South Africa is facing?
Do you want to be a bit more specific on those dangers, Scott?
Well, it's just one of the talking points you sent me, addressing the dangers.
I see. All right. Look, the dangers that I foresee here in South Africa, firstly, the greatest danger that we have in South Africa is naivety. South Africans are tremendously naive, and I honestly never thought I'd be saying this, but it's incredible that the majority and the most educated people in South Africa are the most naive people in this country. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about these mandates and these illegal laws and rules, should I say, not laws, rules that are being forced on people, and people are absolutely accepting everything without question. And honestly, this naivety and quite frankly, this stupidity of our people to accept these things that the government is dishing out, trusting both a communist and a criminal government to make decisions for them that they perceive to be right, is really not a good thing at all. And so I'm very concerned about the naivety. I'm very concerned about the complicity as well. The people are complying too easily, and this injection that they're sticking into everybody is dangerous. This injection is killing people. It's killed a lot of people. It's really disfigured a lot of people. It's created a lot of medical problems for even more people. But people are lining up and rushing to get it, and it just doesn't make sense to me. People are not doing their research, that they're just taking the media at face value and accepting everything that the media says. And this is the greatest danger right now that we have, because people are being, I get a picture of sheep being herded onto the back of a truck
Yeah.
and taken off to the slaughterhouse, and that is exactly what's happening here. The people that are wearing the masks, people that are accepting these vaccines, these people are literally like sheep being loaded onto the back of the truck who are going to the slaughter. Because the problem with the vaccine is not one vaccine. The problem with these vaccines is that there are going to be monthly vaccines in the years to come. So people will literally have to have a vaccine to stay alive. Now, we don't know necessarily, we don't want to surmise what is in that vaccine or guess at it, or come with some conspiracy theory about what is in the vaccine. But I can tell you right now that these things have been developed far too quickly. They have not been able to isolate a COVID-19 genome anywhere in the world. Nobody has even been able to find a COVID-19 in anybody that's died or has supposedly had this illness. So, I mean, we're not quite sure what they're talking about. So these people that are rushing to get an injection for something that potentially does not exist is a problem. I'm not saying that there isn't a sickness. There certainly is something. There is an illness. And whether you call it COVID-19 or you call it the flu, there is definitely an illness, and it is certainly killing people. Just flu every year, but it's not killing any more people than the flu the previous year. So this is my concern is that people are complying to it, led by the nose to the slaughter, and they're not asking enough questions. And I think what we need to do is we need to get to the people of South Africa and start asking questions, not necessarily listening to me or to you or to us, but let them go and do their own research, let them find out themselves what is really going on, what is really behind this agenda, or is there an agenda at all? But we need to be asking questions. We can't just be sitting there like we see on TV, and that's really what's happening. So that, for me, is one of the greatest problems. Yeah, over to you, Scott.
Yeah, well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I'll tell you why. Because the mainstream media, the fake news, as I call it, is clearly derelict in its duty to give people the truth. They are just saying what they're told to say about the vaccine. And this is exacerbated by big tech, platforms like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. If you dare put anything up there that is contrary to the World Health Organization perspective, and they've got so many things wrong when it came to this pandemic or scamdemic, that the cover-up, even, I mean, I've seen it. I've had channels on YouTube taken down for medical misinformation because I dared to challenge this whole vaccine rollout. And that's why I've got a new platform called lovinglivetv.com. On there, we can put up anything. No one can take us down because it's our own platform. And that's the only way to actually have integrity now on the internet. You can't have integrity if you're on a big platform like YouTube, because you cannot say things openly and honestly, because otherwise they will give you a community strike, and you get 3 of those in 3 months and you're off. They just take you down. It's quite disgusting what happens in reality.
Well, the possibility also is that all of us that have been putting all of this on are going to possibly be loaded up onto the back of trucks and sent off to FEMA camps. So there's that possibility too we need to start thinking about, you know what I mean? So we need to be careful. We do. I mean, what we're doing here is serious stuff, because we are opposing the New World Order. We are opposing everything that they're attempting to create, so we need to be thinking wisely as well.
Well, I'm an old fart, so it really doesn't worry me, because I've had a good life, and I remember, if I can call it that now, the old days where we had freedoms, and I understand how those freedoms have been compromised by increasingly by governments all over the world. It's absolutely disgusting. But let's get back to the Unity Group. How do we untangle ourselves from this mess? I'm talking about in South Africa.
Yeah. I understand. The challenge, or should I say, the what's the right word? Most people would like to do whatever needs to be done in certain ways that may not necessarily be the correct way of doing things. Now, if we look at the way Gandhi did things in India, um, to alter force change in India and get India free of Britain. It wasn't violent. It was just constant, and he was always in front of people, and he was always talking, and he was always saying the right things, and things changed in India. Now, how do we change things in South Africa? And to tell you the truth, I believe that the political system that has been in South Africa for as long as we can remember has devolved this country to such a level of absolute degradation and absolute destruction by the political leaders that are currently in power, and the previous ones too. Even the lily white ones. They were no angels. Believe me, they grabbed their pound of flesh too. So we need to be. We don't need to just be pointing fingers at one and not the other. All politicians are the same. There's no difference. I believe, and I want to state this very categorically, that the way to change this country is not through violence. The way to change this country is not through more division. The way to change it is not to have more political parties and more options and more ideas or things like that. I don't believe that is the right way to change a country. I believe that this country can be changed by the people uniting and working together through a system, through a unifying system that we're busy developing, but to work closer together, to get more businesses up and running, to get manufacturing going, to change the schooling system. So instead of complaining about things, fixing them. Because people are not happy about the school system. The kids are burning the schools because they're not learning anything in them. They're not burning them because they've got nothing else to do. They desperately want to learn, but they're not learning, so they're burning the schools down because the standard of education has dropped so far down. They don't have books. The teachers aren't properly qualified. So let's change it. Let's just fix it. Let's fix the schools. Let's fix business. Let's fix manufacturing. Let's slow down on imports. Let's get people to stop buying more imported goods and let them, even if they cost a little bit more to start off with, get people to start buying locally manufactured products. I'm at a place now where I almost buy nothing that isn't South African. So I look at every label of everything that I buy. Where's the food that I buy from? And if it's not made in South Africa, I don't buy it. I just won't have it. So, there are things that we can do to get ourselves and untangle ourselves from this mess. Fighting is not one of them, because that's going to create a civil war. It's going to create more division, and a lot of people are going to get hurt. And that isn't the way to do this. I believe that to unify this country is to offer solutions for the country. If you've got holes in your road, in your suburb, go and buy a bag of cement and fix it. Stop whinging about it. Stop complaining. Just fix it. Get on with it. And that's what we need to be doing now. We need to start becoming solution providers and stop looking for reasons to blame everybody else and to say to swear and shout and say nasty things about everybody is what I'm trying to say. That's not necessary, and it doesn't help. It might help you for a few minutes to whinge away, but at the end of the day, it's not going to fix the problem. Let's just fix the problems. Let's be solution providers. And I think in that way we can solve problems in the country.
Right. Now, look, I see one of the big issues, or one of the big problems, is that there's a complete disconnect between a political system back in 1994, which was, running pretty smoothly, and the ANC running a country when I think a lot of the actual members of parliament are basically straight out of the days of Shaka. They're probably well-connected ANC people. I don't think they have an understanding of what a political system is, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that South Africa has, is because there's this huge disconnect with a large percent of the population which are living in like 1,800 times under Shaka, and then you've got the guys who are in the government who are making a killing, and these people who are still living like in the old days will just automatically vote for the ANC because they're just indoctrinated and they've got no better ideas. I think that's one of the huge challenges you face. But having said that, let's talk about the way forward that you see as a way to go for South Africa.
Scott, you see, the people that are voting for the ANC, we need to understand why they vote for the ANC, and I don't think we really do understand properly what the reason why they do. The people that are voting for them vote for them because they believe that the ANC are the people that free them from slavery. That's what they believe. And so they continue to vote for them because they are loyal to the people that freed them from slavery. Now, for middle-class people living in South Africa, it's a completely different picture. Middle-class people have got a lot to lose. Poor people have nothing to lose. And so whether the ANC continues to rule over them or not makes very little difference to them. It doesn't change their lives whatsoever, because their lives have always been bad. Their lives have always been hard, and there's no real difference to them. Finding a way forward is not to attack the ANC. It's not to, it's not to say, oh, these guys are a bunch of idiots. We're cleverer. That's not really the way that we're going to win them over. And for me, having spent a lot of time talking to people in rural areas, in townships, and a number of my friends who are Xhosa, Zulu, Tswana people, that I've had long discussions with about this is what is coming through. And a lot of these people are still ANC members, and they are friends of mine, and they still vote for the ANC, and they will continue to vote for the ANC, because you see, the difference between black people and white people is that black people are loyal. They are loyal to these people because they believe they're the ones who set them free. So that loyalty will continue. And now from our point of view, how do we win them over? Well, as I've said, we don't win them over by attacking the ANC. We win them over by offering them solutions. And our way forward is simply to offer solutions. What are we saying? We're saying, listen, guys, you need jobs, so let's provide jobs. Let's create an environment where work can start happening. So let's get some factories open. Let's get some sponsorship. Let's get some companies who would like to start starting up again in the clothing sector or in engineering or whatever the case may be, and let's start doing things. Let's start creating jobs. So we're not going to say, oh, don't vote for the ANC and vote for us. We're simply going to say, listen, do whatever you like, but we're offering you solutions. And I think that way we can win the people over, not with guns and fighting and bad tempers, but win them over with respect, win them over the solutions that everybody's looking for in this country. And so if a person is hungry and he knows that he's going to vote for the ANC and he's going to stay hungry, he's going to do that. But if a person knows that he is hungry today, but there's a chance that he won't be hungry tomorrow, because those guys are not just talking about solutions, they're actually providing the solutions. He is going to vote for us. And that would be the way forward, I see.
Right. Now, it's interesting you talk about employment, because and I'm just addressing the side chat now. We've got about 150 people watching us. Please, guys, if you've got questions for Michael, put them in the side chat. I've got a couple of questions here ready for you. And one of them is related to my next question to you, Michael. When it comes to employment, one of the huge travesties I see, which has completely destroyed the concept of a rainbow nation, is the ANC's black economic empowerment. And Barbara Sattler has asked, Unity Group, how does Unity Group overcome the BEE regulations?
Well, we would just remove it. I mean, that wouldn't be something that we would be interested in even negotiating about, because it's a racist principle. And we are a non-racist party. We will not support, we're not a party, we're a non-racist organization. We would not support anything that is racist at all. And BEE is probably one of the most racist systems on the planet. And so, no, that's something that we would not entertain at all.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the media would have you believe that BEE is good. It's not racist, and I believe it is, for the record. But the media would have you believe it's good because it's kind of empowering the black population who've been disenfranchised for so long. Now, I noticed on your website, I've been going through your website, and on your page where you talk about the problem, this is related to BEE. You say, and I'd like you to talk about this, you say double B triple E has completely destroyed the economic backbone of this country, and the tender system has been used to enrich friends and drain the country's resources. No money has been put into building the country's economically or any other way. The building or maintenance of infrastructure is ignored. Productive farms and agricultural schemes that have been bought or taken over for BBEEE purposes have been totally destroyed and are no longer in use, productive or profitable. Do you want to talk to us about that aspect?
There was a big aspect you just mentioned there.
I know it's a huge aspect, but I'd like your views on it.
You know, the thing is, when you get people who are not properly trained to do something, to do that thing, you end up with a problem, because quite often they will do it as cheaply as possible, which means that it won't last, that it won't have the same longevity as something that was done by a skilled person in that field, and that is what's been happening with the tender system and BBEEE. And they are pretty much the same thing. They're part of each other. So, you know, you can only get a tender in South Africa if you are BBEEE. So if you're not going to get that tender. Now, I remember a pastor friend of mine, a Zulu pastor friend of mine, a number of years ago when I was living in the bush up in Cozy Bay. He wanted to rope me in on a tender scheme of his that he'd been, because he had a friend in the government, he'd got hold of some tenders to supply these weed eater things, you know, those with a little twirly-whirly that cuts the grass, those things. And I said to him, well, look, you know, I mean, how much have you been given, you know, for these things? So he said, no, well, he's been given about 3,000 or 4,000 rand each. So I said, well, okay, well, that's a pretty good number. I mean, you can get a really good one for that amount of money. He said, oh, no, I'm just getting them from Game for 300 rand. So that's what he did. So he'd go and buy them at Game for 300 rand and sell them to the government for 4,000 rand. And you see, that is what BBEEE
I know.
is all about.
It's called tenderpreneurs.
And the tender crooks. And the whole tender process, you know, it's about robbing. It's about robbing the government, and you know that is illegal. It's theft. You know, it's something that it can't be condoned, and so that is how the country's finances and resources have been depleted by things like this. You know, and so if a government department needs to have something done, they need to have a department within that gets those things done. You know, and it should be cost effective. They should be negotiating for the best possible prices, not attempting to pay as much money as possible for something. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's not the way you run a country or a company for that matter. And so, that really is a problem.
Right. No.
So, sorry, just remind me of those other points you spoke about there.
We're talking about how the infrastructure maintenance is ignored and productive farms and agricultural schemes and stuff like that.
Look, the productive farms, that is just a scary story. And, you know, it's very, very sad, in fact, because here I witnessed something firsthand. Up in Cozy Bay, or in that area, was probably one of the most productive and largest cashew nut plantations in southern Africa, probably in the southern hemisphere. I think only Mozambique may have more cashew nuts per square kilometer, but this was one farm, and it had thousands of trees, thousands, and it was the most productive cashew nut farm plantation anywhere.
Yeah, I heard it's terrible what happened. Carry on.
Yeah, and you know, they were grooming a few people over a number of years. I think it was 5 or 6 years that they groomed these guys to take it over, And I promise you, within 6 months of taking it over, it was bankrupt.
Yeah.
All the money had been drained.
Yeah.
They'd sold all the machinery, and they'd bought fancy cars and built nice houses. And that plantation is lying in ruins today, you know. And that is one of the things that we, as the Unity Group, need to start looking at projects like this that we're running and get them back up and going again, you know. I mean, the same goes for a sawmill that was in that area. Exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know, they gave the sawmill over to a bunch of BEE guys, and I promise you, within less than a year, those guys were bankrupt, and that business closed. And over and over and over, it's been happening. However, there is something else at play that we need to be very conscious of. This taking over of farms is not to take over farms to give to the people. This taking over of farms is to keep the farms for the government. So this is a different agenda. This isn't about taking farms and giving them away. This is about taking farms away from people that are productive, away from farmers that are productive, and keeping them, and the government keeping them themselves and making them non-productive. Because you see, with this whole New World Order dependency situation that's coming up, and with universal credit, the whole idea is to get people dependent on the government system. And if they can get everybody dependent on the system, they can control them. They can microchip them. They can vaccinate them whenever they want. They can do whatever they like to them. And that seems to be ultimately what is coming, without sounding like, hopefully not sounding like a conspiracy theorist. That seems to be what's coming. And I mean, talking about microchipping, there's a young Causa guy that got hold of me last week. And he got hold of me through one of our small groups. And he told me that he had a microchip implanted in him. It was done to him at Hermanus Hospital. He'd had this a microchip stuck into his head, and he sent me photographs. He sent me the x-rays. I can see it on the x-ray. It's right there. The microchip is there. And he said, look, he's been battling to sleep. He can hear these weird messages being sent to him. I mean, it's really quite bizarre. It's as if they've made him a human experiment, and they must be able to track him with this thing. So these things are coming. I mean, here's a guy who's coming to see me next week, who's got a microchip in his head already. This is slightly larger than the ones that are coming. But if he's got it and it's already there, it just coming me next to him. So I'll be able to take a photograph of it and send it to you, or even a video of the extraction of it. So, you know, there's a lot going on, Scott. We can't just be thinking, oh, you know, they're taking away the farms to do this. They've got a big agenda, and the big agenda is to get us absolutely subservient.
Yeah. Well, look, there's so many different things that I want to respond to in that last statement you made. The first one is that Elon Musk has developed a chip that you put in your brain. It's the size of a 20-cent piece. And it's actually got little wires that somehow merge with your brain. And they're trialing this right now. And he's talking about your memories from your head being put up on the cloud. And how you can actually just think things from the cloud. This is scary shit, because a chip that has that sort of power can pretty well take over your brain. You know, it is quite extraordinary what they're talking about. Now, getting back to the failure of that pecan nut farm and other farms that are just handed over to the ANC cadres. Back in the 1970s, I lived in Umzimkulu, in Akopa, which is just north of Umzimkulu. And I used to do the Umzimkulu Bank Agency, and one of my biggest clients there was Ken Strachan from Strachan and Company. They had 27 stores spread around East Griqualand. And when the South African government set up the homelands, that area became called the Transkei. And all the stores owned by Strachan and Co. were basically he had to sell his stores to the government, and the government then gave them to black owners around East Griqualand. Within 6 months, they were all bankrupt, every single one. This is after that organization had been running for well over 100 years. They were just bankrupted like that. It's just crazy. I mean, it's just suicidal, and they never learn. You know, you don't do it the wrong thing twice because you're going to get the same outcome. No.
Well, no, exactly. And you don't give things to people for free. They're never going to respect them. You know? So, yeah.
Right. Now, Marlena's just said, talking about the chip in the brain, I have sent you a similar report on using the same technology to transact with Bitcoin. No ways I'm going to do that. I have put my foot in the water with Bitcoin, though. Now, I also just want to mention with the side chat here to Dan Berryman, I'm actually going to be putting up his Sunday service overnight. So on Saturday morning, it will be up. It's called The Joy of the Cross, and I've listened to it, and it's inspirational. But I'll put it up on Sunday morning on the main YouTube Loving Life channel. And as I say, Saturday morning I'll put it up on Loving Life TV, because we're going to have that period on Loving Life TV where we're going to be down as we're doing this massive upgrade because of the growth in traffic. So just to let you know when that Sunday service will be going up. Okay, guys, don't forget to put your questions in the side chat. I am keeping an eye on the side chat. Okay, now let's get back to our discussion here. We've really covered a few subjects today or tonight, haven't we, Michael?
Indeed, we have. And the best one's still coming.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're slowly working our way through. Now, we talked about the vaccine. And tell me about the mask mandate and its far-reaching problems with kids.
The problem with the masks and what they're doing to children is that they're creating fear. They're creating distrust. They're creating a separation from their peers. You know, they're just so many very, very long-reaching effects that these masks are having on the children. And we really want to encourage parents to, as far as possible, not encourage children to wear masks, because ultimately the children don't need to wear masks. In the UK, I don't believe any children are wearing masks at all. There seems to be an immunity or something with children that they're not getting whatever this thing is supposed to be. So there's no real reason for children to be wearing masks, and certainly not wearing masks all day the way they do at school. And so, you know, we just want to encourage parents to limit, you know, the children's use of masks, because they're really dangerous. Of course, you know, from a health point of view, that they're not getting sufficient oxygen. Their brain development is being stunted because they're not breathing good oxygen. You know, so there are a lot of factors, but the most important one, as far as I'm concerned, is fear. Is creating a lot of fear.
Yes, it's so
creating
right.
a lot of insecurities, a lot of doubts, you know, a lot of distrust, you know, a lot of those things. And that is a real problem. And going forward, when these children start growing up, they're going to be paranoid, absolute paranoid adults because of this. It will have affected them so badly psychologically, and it will be such a long-term effect that half of them will probably end up in lunatic asylums because of it. Well, let's hope not. I don't want to make that prediction. A lot of them could possibly end up in lunatic asylums because of this. That is a concern for us, really. And yeah, that's really all I wanted to say on that.
Well, I need to just add to what you said. I had a very interesting discussion just last night with Mike Lacey-Smith, who is a psychologist. And we were talking about the emotional and mental impact of the lockdown and wearing masks on people of all ages. And he made the point that teenagers, you know, young girls and boys who are 13 and 14, they're going through that stage where their hormones are changing and they want to socialize, they want to go to parties, they want to just be kids. And that's been stolen from them. And he said that this is going to be debilitating for them later on, because this is a key part in their growing up that's been basically stolen from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
I agree.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Now, let's get back to some of the other issues in South Africa. For example, we all know that President Xi Jinping from China has got great ambitions to make Africa, the whole of Africa, a colony of China. And clearly the ANC government have walked into the trap, the debt trap, where they're just borrowing money, and China's going to in the future try and pull in their money and say, okay, you can't pay, then we want this, this, and this in exchange. Tell us about your views about the Chinese problem.
Well, look, Scott, I mean, they're already taking things. It's not that they're going to wait to take them. They're already taking them. One of the things that they have bought is free passage for Chinese citizens into South Africa. So they've bought that already. Chinese citizens don't pay tax. They come into the country. They get paid. They get given by the Chinese government. They get given a sum of around about R1 million by the Chinese government to come to South Africa to set up shop in a properly agreed location. So these people are sitting around a map in China, okay, and they're going, okay, look, this little town we've got this guy, that guy, that town we've only got one little Chinese shop. Okay, you're going to set up a Chinese restaurant in that shop, in that town. So they give that person a sum of money, they send the person out, and they have to go and set up shop, set up their home, everything in that little village or town, wherever it is, doesn't matter where it is in South Africa, that's where they're mandated to go. They generally don't have too much of a choice as far as I'm understanding. Then they need to start sending money home, not necessarily back to the government. That so-called loan isn't necessarily a loan. It's money that's given to them. So it's a gift for their obedience to come out to South Africa or wherever they go. They then take the money that they make in those stores and they send it back to China, so it gets circulated in the Chinese system, which means our system is being depleted of those rands. So if you had to take your money and go and shop, heaven forbid, at Pick n Pay, where they would force you to wear a mask, your money would at least stay in the system. So it would go into FNB Bank, it would come out of FNB Bank, we get drawn, and would stay in the South African system. That money would get used over and over and over. However, if you go to a Chinese store, firstly, by buying something Chinese, you are depleting our own manufacturing industry. And by buying something Chinese, that money that you have given that person behind the counter goes back to China. It may well go into FNB today, but he wires to his family or whoever is over there. So that money is constantly leaving the country.
Yeah.
So our holding, our cash holding, our financial holding as a country is being depleted at such a rate by these foreigners that have set up shop in South Africa. And it's not only the Chinese that work like this, the Bangladeshis work like this as well as a few other countries who are sending people over to South Africa and other African countries. Now, this poses a massive problem because we can't just keep printing money. And if we do start printing money, the value of that money is going to be depleted. And so this constant buying from Chinese shops is shooting ourselves in the foot, because the more we buy from them, the more we devalue our own currency. And with 7 million Chinese people in South Africa at the moment.
7 million?
7 million. There are more Chinese people in South Africa than whites, colored, and Indians combined. Okay, they're the second biggest demographic in South Africa after the black population.
Where are they hiding out?
They're not hiding. They're everywhere. They're in every single little village, every town. They're everywhere. They're in every form of industry. You cannot believe. They are absolutely everywhere. They've wormed their way into every strata of society. And so this is the biggest problem we're facing in South Africa. Not like I mentioned before, the naivety. That's the next biggest problem.
Yeah.
This is the biggest problem.
I hadn't
it's
realized
the Chinese takeover of Africa.
Yeah.
And we need to get the word out to people across South Africa to stop buying Chinese. Okay, look, your Samsung phone or whatever the case may be, that's almost unavoidable. Most of those things, come through come on shipping containers and going to big stores or whatever the case may be. But buying from those little corner shops, those Chinese corner shops, buying at Chinatown, buying, the Chinese clothing, this needs to stop. We really need to stop supporting these people, because the more we do it, the more we shoot ourselves in the foot, the more we deplete our own currency. And, it's like slowly poisoning yourself. And I mean, which intelligent person would want to do that? And that is what we're doing. By supporting these people, by supporting their stores and what they're doing, we are poisoning ourselves. And I've heard a lot of arguments, people saying, oh, but they're so sweet and they're so friendly, and it doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter how sweet and friendly they may appear today. They're all in this together. This is a Chinese communist agenda, a Chinese communist plan to take over Africa. And they may well look sweet to you today, but tomorrow, when they come with all their other family, with those children and grandparents, and over and over and over, and bringing millions and millions and millions more of them into the country, and moving into your homes the way communists do, is going to look very different. So we have to start waking up, South Africa. We really do. And we have to stop supporting everything or anything that is Chinese.
Well, I believe South Africa has now got its first Chinese minister in the ANC government. And I also should say that for those people who aren't in South Africa, the Chinese, believe it or not, are honorary blacks. They're honorary blacks, which means that they don't have to worry about BEE and triple BEE, which is just aimed or targeted at basically the minority white population. And the other point I'd make is that the Chinese are incredibly racist. There are so many examples of this. Back in China, a black African is treated like a piece of shit. I mean, they really are. Yet, for some reason, the ANC have embraced them. And I think that's because the leadership has got a lot of backhanders from the Chinese. Now, I heard, Michael, that in Ponderland, there's a large area of coastline that is being given to the Chinese to develop. I'm not sure if you've heard of this. It's been a rumor that's been circulating for a while now. I know that they've got a big project that they're putting up in the Limpopo area. It's all tied up with minerals, and they're going to have refineries and even their own power station up there. I'm sure you've heard of that one. But the Chinese takeover is clearly in play right now.
No, absolutely. I haven't heard about. I mean, I've heard that they were giving them land left, right, and center. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing that in Ponderland. But I haven't personally heard of it. But yeah, this is their plan. Their plan is just to take over the whole of Africa. And as you've said, they're incredibly racist, and they really hate blacks. They don't particularly like whites either. I'll tell you that. They don't really like anybody that's not Chinese.
Yeah.
So, but the blacks they absolutely despise. The thing is that some of the black people have this misconception that the leadership would be better under the Chinese. What they don't understand is that the Chinese don't give anything for free. So all of these grants and things that they've been getting will stop. There'll be no money for free. There'll be no free money.
Yeah.
So people would literally starve to death if the Chinese were in power. And I mean, we've got multiple examples of this. I mean, the story that I like to tell is of the road from Pontedora all the way up to, right up past Maputo. It goes right up the north of Mozambique, right up into the north up there into Beira. It's a tremendously long road that the Chinese built. And when they built it, they brought all of their own workers, they brought all of their own cement, they brought all of their own food, they brought everything of their own to the poorest country on earth, to Mozambique, where they didn't buy a single chicken, a single cashew nut. They bought nothing from the local people, and they didn't offer employment to any of the local people either.
Yeah.
So they came and built the road with all of their own resources, and then left again. And the country was no richer for it. All they did was take over all the fishing rights from Mozambique, and that's what they got. So this is the way they work. And they did exactly the same thing in Zambia. The other day, apparently, they just completed an airport. Now, the Zambians think that they're building this airport for Zambians. They're building these airports for themselves, so they can land there with their planes. So, people are just so dumb, that they think that the Chinese are doing these things for them, for the locals. They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
The reason they built that road in Mozambique is so that their vehicles can travel on those roads, because they need that to move the minerals. And I mean, incidentally, there were indigenous forests up in the north of Mozambique that they got as part of their bargain. Those indigenous forests that are thousands of years old, and they literally flattened those forests, with trees that 6 people couldn't put their arms around, and loaded them on their Chinese ships and shipped them back to China like that within days. There was friends of mine who are from Mozambique saw the trucks. I wouldn't say hundreds, but 30, 40, 50 trucks a day rolling down the road full of these trees, loading them on ships and shipping them back to China. And that is exactly what's going to happen here. It's happened everywhere else they are in Africa. And the only way we can stop them is as a people, we decide we are not having the Chinese in this country. We stop supporting them. We freeze their business, and we force them out of business. It's the only way we can do it. I can't see another way of getting rid of this problem, because it is the biggest problem that we have.
Yeah. Now, I find it extraordinary because when we talk about xenophobia in South Africa, it seems to be restricted to South Africans versus, for example, Zimbabweans or Mozambicans or Angolans or Nigerians. It's not. They don't seem to be xenophobic towards the Chinese people, and I don't understand why, because these guys are, as you say, it's like the Trojan horse. They're there to destroy South Africa or take it over.
Well, perhaps somebody needs to tell them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Now, Winston Young has said, would Michael be willing to have a live chat with Neil de Beer? He says it would be interesting. I'm sure you've heard of Neil de Beer.
No, I wouldn't. No, I have no interest in talking to Neil de Beer.
I thought that would be the answer.
No, the man's no. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, now just getting back to the side chat, Bruce Basters asked, Michael, your system is a great idea, but how are you going to change the minds of the masses, because they are just going to vote ANC or EFF?
We have to prove our worth, and I think the ANC and the EFF have never proven their worth. And the people are aware of that. They continue to vote for them because there are no really viable options. The DA and all these other criminal parties are not really options. So they're not going to vote for another political party. So they've never, ever been given a better option than the ANC or the EFF. And so if one can give them a better option without shooting their beliefs down, and I don't think that's the right way. You can't trundle in there and say, oh, stop voting ANC and EFF. You trundle in there and just give them a solution. Just fix the problems that they're concerned about, and don't spend too much time like our friend Neil de Beer talking about a lot of things and doing very little. I think that things need to get done in South Africa. And I think by doing things, by actually providing those solutions, we will convince them. And yes, they are brainwashed, and yes, they are following blindly after these the two political parties you've just mentioned. But I believe that can change, because everybody right now in South Africa, and especially amongst the black community, are wanting change. They're wanting something different. They would like to see something different. I mean, a lot of them are really tired of suffering.
Yeah.
So I think just by providing solutions, not talking, just really can change South Africa, and we can get it. We can get behind us.
Right. Wow. Okay, I'm just going to address the side chat for a minute, Michael. Now, guys, if you've got questions you'd like to ask of Michael, please just put them into the side chat. I've had a couple that I've put out there already. Now, okay, Michael, how do we get the country involved in throwing off the controls?
We're part of the country. Let's start with the losses. Let's start with the taxpayers. You know, where possible, we need to start, as I've said a lot of times, we need to start providing solutions. And I believe that the middle classes are, the taxpayers, the business owners, those are the people that have the power right now. They still have the power, the financial power. And if we could get together, you know, with those people who would be interested in seeing change, in bringing change, who would like to collaborate and work together with us to bring that change, I believe we can throw off this yoke. I believe we can throw off this power and controls. But we need to want to. We need to want to work together. And we need to stop thinking selfishly. The biggest problem we have in South Africa is that everybody wants to paddle their own flipping canoe. And we need to stop thinking like that. We need to start thinking about working communally. We need to start thinking about taking hands with one another and providing the solutions and bringing the change to the country that's needed. And I know there are tremendously wealthy people in South Africa that still live here, that have got unbelievable wealth, that's disposable wealth, that they literally don't need, that they could invest in a project like this, perhaps reviving a factory, perhaps getting an engineering plant going, perhaps starting a South African version of a motor car, or whatever, whatever idea comes to mind. Those people are there. What we need right now is we need to start taking hands with those people. They need to start coming forward and saying, listen, we would also like to see change in the country. We would also like to work towards a better country. If we can do that, Scott, we will start throwing off these controls that are over us, because that way the people will start benefiting, the people will start seeing there's movement, that there's action and there is change. And I think that's what we need to do on that side. Now, in terms of the working classes and the poorer people who don't have very much, we need to simply show ourselves to be, to be men and women of our word. That if we say we're going to do something, let's just do it. And then provide solutions to them, provide options for them, provide not just work, but provide better health care, provide, other ways of creating income for them, and just constantly thinking of ways to help the rest of our population, and not constantly thinking about how to help ourselves, how to enrich ourselves, and how much can I get out of it, but how much can I put into it is the question that I think we should be asking. And I think that way, if we as a country, as a nation, could start thinking selflessly, I think we would get a lot further than the way we're thinking right now. Because to be fair, we're constantly doing the same thing, expecting a different result, and it just really doesn't work like that. We need to start changing the way we think. We need to start changing the way we act. We need to start changing everything that we do and start doing things in a different way. Because not only are we living in a new world, but potentially we could be living in a very new South Africa if we don't do something. And it wouldn't be a South Africa that many of you would like to be in. And I think that is really important for us to remember.
Right. Now, Michael Dawson has asked, how do we prevent the ANC going back to the armed struggle if they're outvoted? Well, I'm not sure that would happen. What are your thoughts on that, Michael?
The thing is, to have an armed struggle, you need people. Now, how many people logically are interested in an armed struggle? The misconception amongst a lot of people is that they will look at another race and think that race just wants war. No, they don't. They want peace just as much as you do. They want to have a normal life and a peaceful life and have their children around their huts or, their homes or whatever the case may be. They're not all thinking about war. there may be a few people that could well be thinking about that, but it's not the majority. It's certainly not even the minority. There'll be very, very few people indeed. However, in a country like we're talking about, or that we envisage, we're talking about having convinced through our actions a large number of the population who would not stand for any of that. So if one of their neighbors decided, oh, they're going off to war, they'll stop him. They won't allow him to do it. And so they would protect the system themselves, because by then they would have bought into it. And that's what we're needing to develop. We needing to get the people to a place where they buy into the system that we're presenting, because then they can see the benefits of it, they can see the value of it, and they can see the return of it. And I think those are the important things. But as I've said before, we need to still get there. And to get there, we need to do this together with the rest of South Africa. We can't do it on our own. We haven't got 2 brass farthings to rub together to get all of this done. But the money is available in South Africa for this to get done. And we're calling on South Africa to put their heads together, to put their, to take hands with us, and let's work together to create a better South Africa. Not just talking about a better South Africa, but making a better South Africa. Stop whinging about the old one and make a new one. And that's really the way to do this.
Right. Now, Michael, what's the best way for people to contact the Unity group? I mean, you've got a Facebook page, you've got a web page. Do you want to just give out that information now so that people who are interested can go and check you out?
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Look, people can connect with us if they're still on Facebook. They can go to the Unity Group SA, which is our Facebook page. They can also, please, and I think that this is quite important, we'd like as many South Africans as possible to register on our website. It's the unitygroup.coza. Please register on there. And then if you'd like to contact us, it's info@theunitygroup.coza.
Now, can I just clarify something? Can I just clarify something?
Okay.
The actual website and email, is it theunitygroup.co.za or is it unitygroup.co.za? So it's the. Okay, so guys, the website address is theunitygroup, one word, .co.za, and the email is over to you, Michael.
It's info@theunitygroup.coza.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, now, well, we've been talking for nearly 90 minutes. Michael, time flies when you're having fun. Is there a message you'd like to give to people who are watching this video now, who might watch it later? Just something just straight out of your head, something you'd like to share with people.
I think in closing, I would just like to say that, the world and the country and everyone has really been devolving for so long. And I think this is a time for change. This is a time where change is needed and change is vital. And I think that if we all as South Africans and people across the globe can begin to take hands and realize that the time for greed and the time for selfish thinking really has come to a close. And this is a time for community. This is a time for, people and countries and individuals to start working together. And I would like to encourage every South African out there who's watching this, or just every person who's out there, do your little bit. Do what you can towards making this country a better place. Don't wait for other people to do it for you. Don't wait for us to do it for you so that you can just ride on the wave. Rather get involved. Roll your sleeves up and see what you can do. And if you don't know what to do, contact us. We'll help you. We'll show you what to do, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done. There's a lot of work, and there are a lot of people that need to be helped and woken up and given information, and businesses that need to be started, and all kinds of things that need to get done. So if you're at a loose end and don't know what to do, really contact us, but don't sit around and do nothing. That's not an option right now. Your destruction is at the door, believe me. And if you just sit around doing nothing, only you will be to blame if that destruction does come and you hadn't done anything to prevent it. So we have to take hands. We have to fight together. We have to work together. We have to stand together. And let's do it together as South Africans, as people who love our country, who want to see this country prospering. We want to see this country even greater than it ever was before, because we can do it. We just have to want to do it. And I believe that most of us do want to do it. A lot of us are afraid. A lot of us might just not have good ideas, but that's what we're here for. That's what the Unity Group is here for, to help you to get involved, to help you to do a little bit more to make this country great. Thanks, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Michael, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you on as a guest, and it's always great to hear different ideas and, solutions, because we know this country is just being, or South Africa has just been pushed into I'm not even going to go there. It's a disaster which has happened. It's not waiting to happen anymore. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. To the moderators, thanks guys for keeping an eye on the side chat. I think it's been pretty well troll-free tonight, which is a nice change. And we get trolls on this the live streams from time to time, Michael. It's very interesting, some of the things that people say. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, guys, please take care, and don't forget that tomorrow afternoon, that's Saturday afternoon, the lovinglifetv.com platform, our new platform that we're moving to, will be down for about 24 hours because we're completing the upgrade. We're going to upgrade Loving Life TV so that it can take 25 times more traffic than it initially could. We're growing exponentially on that platform, and I do encourage people to register on lovinglifetv.com because our goal is to become the largest source of daily news on South Africa on the internet, and we're already moving very closely towards that. Okay.
Well done, Scott. Thank you very much for this, and thanks for everything you're doing, and for Marlena as well, and all you guys do. It's really appreciated. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And Michael, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. And Marlena does a fantastic job. Without Marlena, I could not do what I do, believe me. All right, guys, I'm going to leave the side chat open for a few minutes so you can have a bit of a chat. And so tomorrow night there will not be a live stream, but there'll be videos still going up on Loving Life on YouTube in the interim. So that'll still be up, obviously, during the weekend. Take care, guys, and bye for now.
Great stuff. Bye. Thank you.